Are you looking for real, raw, and unfiltered news about what's happening in the greater Philadelphia area? Are you sick of all the vanilla takes about the local issues affecting our community right now? You're in the right place. Tune in to the Philly Face to Face podcast. So we're here. It's our first episode of our new show that we're rolling out, and it's all about interviewing community leaders, local business owners, activists, to kind of see what's going on, what are the issues locally in the greater Philadelphia area, things people should be aware of, and just trying to give some perspective, not only on the real estate side of things, but a lot of other relevant issues for people in our community. So I've got Kevin Hamill here with Alliances Insurance. Thanks for coming on, man.
Thank you for having me, Tom.
Pumped to be here. And a little background about Kevin. So he runs his own company, Alliances Insurance. He's done over 3,000 insurance applications. He's local in Chester County. Tell us a little bit about yourself for the people that don't know you. Obviously, I know you pretty well, so we don't need to go into that stuff. But what should people know about Kevin Hamill?
Well, thanks again, Tom, for having me. I'm excited to be here. Again, my name's Kevin Hamill. I live with my wife, Karen, of 12 years in Exton. We have 4 beautiful children. We're 1, 3, 8, and 10. Very heavily involved in sports when we have the time. We are very, very busy people, as you might imagine. But I love to coach my kids basketball and flag football, soccer, and everything. But on the professional side, I opened up Alliances Insurance Agency in 2012. And since then, we have grown to 4 people on the staff, which is pretty exciting. We're thrilled for the future.
Well, growth, I mean, it's got to start somewhere, right? And a lot of insurance agents, I imagine, it's kind of like realtors where it's like a one-man show a lot of cases, and that really hurts your ability to scale your business. So
Absolutely.
What's that been like adding staff? I mean, what have you seen there for a lot of the local business owners out there? I mean, it's a scary thing when you're adding a salary onto your books. So what's that been like for you over the past couple of years as you built your company?
Absolutely, Tom, and I can actually credit you for taking that jump, because you've been telling me for about 2-3 years to bite the bullet, and you were right. It's actually a big relief, because now I can focus on the things that are gonna make us money, bring in revenue, while I have somebody else pushing the paper and doing the things that busy work, and it's been a big relief, helpful for me and also to my clients, because I can spend more time with my clients and help them with their issues, because with insurance things happen. You have a claim, I like to hold your hand during the process to make sure everything goes smoothly, so I can spend a little bit more time in those areas.
Well, a team always outperforms an individual. So, I mean, the fact that you can focus on the higher priority stuff, not that the other things aren't important. Like, it's got to happen. When you have someone that's their only job, it can be actually done a lot better than probably you're able to when you're trying to balance everything at once.
Absolutely, yep.
So, you said you coach a lot, especially your kids. And, I mean, I obviously know this. So, like, why did you want to get involved in the coaching level? Because I think that's a lot of things. Like, I know I would not want to go there, because it's a big time commitment. And I'm probably not going to be good at it, because I'm not very athletic, but that's not the point. So talk to me about, like, why you got involved there, and what really you get out of that. Because I think there's a connotation right now when, like, the other parents are going to, like, bust your chops. Yeah. They're going to be yelling at you. So what's that experience been like for you?
Well, I feel like coaching has actually always been in my blood in a way. I was captains of my teams in youth and in high school, so I've always had that sort of leader mentality. And then when my kids started to play youth sports, there was always the emails. I'm sure everybody that has kids in youth sports can attest to this, but you have the emails. We're in search of coaches. We need coaches. So it was a no-brainer for me to step up and be a coach. And then I loved it. I enjoyed it. I love interacting with the kids, seeing kids grow from week to week, and then judging them from, not judging them, but looking
judging
at
those little kids, judgy eyes,
looking at it from day one when I started coaching till the end of the season, and how much they improved. And there's nothing gives me greater satisfaction than that kid at the end of the year, leaving, smile on his face, saying, I can't wait to play again next year, which is always the goal.
That's pretty awesome because I mean I've got a son who's 7, and we've kind of gone through the same thing where he's left-handed and he's playing baseball, but he bats right. So he like struggles, like he wants to bat lefty, he wants to bat right, and he doesn't know which way to go. And he's got a really great coach now, Coach Josh. If you're watching, big shout out. And he's really helped him just kind of learn how to throw the ball the right way and like get a hit when he's up. And that's hard to do. It takes a lot of patience, and then also like getting the kids to pay attention and making sure they're not going to be sore losers because it's I mean kids that age, they're going to talk smack like anybody else. I mean, I think that's a really important part of this because you go on TV and you see all these athletes right now and they're so bombastic in what they do. It's not really the right way to go about it when you're playing fall ball or you're playing 10-year-old soccer, right? I mean, is that something you talk to your kids about or?
Before the season, I actually kind of just lay down some ground rules, if you would say. We always act the same way, win or lose, no matter what. We always measure progress rather than performance, and you just act the right way. If you don't act the right way, then you're not going to play on my team. It's just that's the way it is.
I think you should start coaching some adults around here because I mean, and you think about, and a lot of business people too. They're trying to be perfect and they're looking at performance. And a lot of times it's progress, not perfection, because it's hard moving the needle sometimes. I mean, whether you're building an insurance company, whether you're doing what I do, or really any small business. So, I mean, that's good advice. I mean, I think that's something you can write that down here. We could end the show right now, and we get 2 really good nuggets. So, very cool. So, talk to me a little bit about, obviously, why did you want to start your own company? Like, what made you want to do that? Like, how did that all go about? I mean, and we've talked about this a little bit, but I don't know that I know the real story.
Well, so I've been in sales my entire life. My father was in sales his entire life, so it's just been ingrained to me. And one of the biggest reasons I love sales, not only because I love to interact with people, but sales is you basically you make what you're worth. So if you put in a lot of time, it's just like anything. Whatever you put in it, you're going to get out of it. With sales, if you're really good at what you do, you're gonna get paid. If you're not really good at what you do, then you're not gonna get paid. But you can judge it, based on how good you are, basically, in a weird way of saying it, I guess.
Well, it's just how committed you are. I think it's not just good, but it's also committed because sometimes it takes a lot of effort to put these things together, whether it's an insurance application or a transaction. So I think the results do show how committed people are. Absolutely. Not to cut you off.
Yeah. But to answer the original question, why I decided to go into business for myself is because, again, control my own destiny. Everything that's done, I'm the one that's accountable for it. It's not somebody that's telling me that, this needs to be done, that needs to be done. And I feel like my entire life I've always been able to succeed under pressure. It was scary, don't get me wrong, because we just had made a purchase on a home and opened up a business at the same time, and we actually were just had our second baby, so it was definitely scary. But hey, you just gotta, in life, you just need 1 second of courage, really.
There's never really a good time to do any of this stuff. I mean, there's never going to be that perfect time, and that's where a lot of small business owners or people that want to start their own business get stuck. They're looking for like the right opportunity, and sometimes it's got to be now. Like,
right.
When's it going to be any better? Like, are you going to wait till after your son turns 5? Well, he might be 2. Like, what are you going to do in that? And time is the most valuable asset. So, I love that you took the leap. So, for someone that's maybe watching or listening and they want to open their own business or they want to open their own company, what sort of advice do you have for them? If you've done it, you've walked the walk. I mean, I've been there as well. So what advice would you have for those people?
Do it. I mean, literally, that's just two words is just do it, because there isn't going to be a right time. There's always going to be an excuse. There's always going to be something that's going to set you back. But if that is something that you truly, really want to do for you and your family, you do it. I mean, you just really, like I said earlier, just have that little leap of courage and faith in yourself that you're going to get it done and move forward, because it was the best decision that I've ever made.
And they had 2 more kids afterwards, so it must be going well if you can afford all that. So there you go. So you mentioned something there that I find pretty interesting, and it's something that I hear you talk about a lot, because Kevin and I got connected in a number of ways. One of them is like a networking group. more importantly, you mentioned about the amount of work you put in and how much and the results you generate are a direct reflection of your income. So you've talked a lot about steering clear of some of these, maybe going with like a smaller insurance firm that can look at your needs appropriately versus like a big box company. So talk to me a little bit about, or what do you think the big differences are with someone who wants to go with a company like yours versus like a Geico, Allstate, one of these companies that are, they got their ads on TV and everything else. But you hear these nightmare stories a lot of times about when the insurance claim actually goes in and you actually have to work with these people.
Yep. So when I decided that I was going to open up and run my own insurance agency, I actually did look into the bigger box companies like State Farm and Allstate. Great carriers, don't get me wrong. However, they work for Allstate or they work for State Farm. They don't work for the client. And I want to bring the most value to my client as possible. So when I was going through that whole process, it was really a no-brainer to do an independent agency because not all needs fit everybody, or not one particular policy or product fits everybody out there. So it's having access to different carriers allows me to provide the best coverage for my clients and my prospects. And I mean, there are a ton, thousands of insurance carriers out there, but we look through them to make sure that, number one, the claims process is smooth. They are good with doing our claims because at the end of the day, that is the most important thing. I don't want to have to hear somebody call me back and complain about the claims process. It's just not something that I'm interested in doing. I want glowing reviews.
Well, it's probably a really stressful time for a lot of people, and that's not that different from a lot of other professionals. And when I say professionals, I think of like attorneys, accountants, realtors, insurance agents, and sometimes people in our line of work, they get kind of a bad rap because so many people get into it and they have that horrible experience. So would you say that's something that applies to other businesses as well, or what's your take on independent or smaller versus big box and larger?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you're the big box, you really are just a number with those people, and unfortunately, that is the case. I've actually come across some policies that people went with one of the big box carriers, and I'm looking at it, and it's a guy that's worth $2 million, but he has $100,000 of family liability. That is scary.
So what does that mean for everyone listening? Because I understand it, but I don't know a lot. So explain like what $100,000 of family liability means.
So if something happens at the home, you have a party, let's say, and somebody drinks a little too much, trips and breaks an arm. Now they want to come, and especially because you're worth $2 million in this particular situation, they say, "Oh, I want to sue for pain and suffering." Well, your policy only has $100,000 to settle that case. And if you're worth $2 million, you better believe that person's attorney is going to be seeking more than $100,000, which means they can garnish your assets or garnish your wages, seize your assets. But ultimately, it's coming out of your pocket, which is scary. Because, I mean, all that person had to do that sold that original policy was ask a little bit more questions, get to know the person before issuing the insurance policy. And he would have known, hey, this guy needs $500,000 and an umbrella policy. And since he has the money, it's silly not to do it. It probably would have cost that person maybe $200 a year, $250.
Well, if you're dealing with someone of that net worth, or any net worth really, because I mean the $100 a year, the $200 a year, people always say, I don't need it until it happens. Right. So is that where you think a company, like a smaller company, can actually have like a real conversation with somebody versus put another file in? Because I mean, mortgage companies, I feel like run the same way. I mean, that's been my experience with them. When you get like a smaller one versus that's local, where you can talk to someone, versus the big company that has 8 different people working on a loan. So is that where you see the big difference? Is the guidance in the counsel?
Yeah, absolutely. And with claims too, because there's situations where I have relationships with the underwriters at these insurance carriers, so they'll look at business. Does this make business sense for us to, push forward? And we'll have a conversation about the actual claim that happened, not what it's telling somebody in a manual in black and white. And then to go back, I know a lot of people are searching online, and you're really just trying to find the cheapest policy online. That is not a good way to do things, because then when you are in danger or you do have a claim or something, you don't know who to talk to, who to turn to. Now, are you going to be able to go on the website and pull up somebody that's going to actually care about you, your family, and your situation? Probably not.
So you want to get someone you can trust. You want someone that can guide you through the process. That's what I'm hearing here, which is no different than really any other service business. So I love hearing that, because these are stressful things people go through. When you have a claim getting filed, usually there's something bad that happened, right? It's like no different than going to the ER in a lot of cases. It only happens to be your house, just not your personal health. Mm-hmm. So locally here, you mentioned something pretty interesting to me the other day about sinkholes and some of the concerns around those. So Pennsylvania is the number 2 state for sinkholes right now. And one, could you explain sinkholes? And two, like, what do people need to be worried about when they're maybe thinking about buying or selling a property, and this is the case?
Right. I'm going to repeat that, what Tom just said. Pennsylvania is the second largest state for sinkholes in the country, which I was actually shocked by. We actually just had a sinkhole situation just about a year ago in Exton, Boot Road and 30, I think it was. There was a huge sinkhole with the gas pipes going in. A sinkhole happens when the foundation is built on limestone, and then the water penetrates, and basically what's the word I'm trying to think of here? I can't think of it right now.
So,
but
I did a little Google research while we were doing this. So it's a hole in the ground caused by a collapse of the surface layer. How deep do these things get?
The one up there, it was 5 by 10 foot hole, which is amazing. And one of the biggest areas around here, I always look, if somebody is purchasing a home around the King of Prussia area, you need sinkhole coverage, because that whole area is built on limestone. And I guarantee that the big box companies that are just looking to turn application after application are not doing the research to make sure, again, that you're covered properly. So if you're living in King of Prussia, please call your insurance agents right now and talk to them about sinkhole coverage. It is very important.
So what you said there reminds me of something that's going on in real estate right now, where they have Redfin has a program where if you're a buyer, you can submit an offer without talking to an agent by filling out a 70-plus question survey. And they just say, in this area, X amount of people elected this contingency. Do you want to elect that or not? So the advice you just gave there, like sinkholes, I knew about King of Prussia, I knew about Exton, but I bet a lot of buyers don't know about it.
Right.
So I think it's another example where you need to get someone you can talk to on the phone that can give you the right advice.
Right.
Whether it's real estate, insurance, whatever, there's intricacies in our local market that make it important to talk to a local expert. And that's what this show and this podcast is all about being local. So I love that you shared that. That's something that I think everyone needs to know about. The other thing you talked about, and then I got a couple non-insurance questions for you, cyber liability. So what's going on there? This was something that was a little surprising to me when we were prepping for the interview here. What are you seeing? What are you seeing with insurance coverage there for a lot of small businesses?
So cyber liability is a huge thing. Everybody knows about Target last year with the credit cards, and then we had Capital One just had a cyber liability. I guess that was over the summer. But for small business owners, it is key for them to have cyber liability insurance. So the hacker goes and hacks your system and then holds all of your client files ransom. You can't get to your client files because they're holding them ransom, and they say, give me X amount of dollars and we'll release your files back to you. This causes 40% of the small businesses that get hacked, they go out of business. They just go out of business. You lose everything. That is, to me, once I heard that stat, I said, where do I sign up? Because the cyber liability insurance is actually relatively new to the industry because we're seeing what's going on. But it has exploded because we're seeing that this is a real issue, and it could happen as easily as you smash and grab your cell phone if you leave it in your car. They could get your information.
So what information do they usually go after? They go out like personal information. They try to like steal your database. Like what's usually, so it's the latter. They're stealing your database.
Exactly.
So what kind of companies are you seeing where this happens to? Is it people that have like they keep everything in Outlook? Or is it, do they have a more advanced CRM? Is there anything or is it all across the board?
It's across the board. And one of the biggest objectives I get when I'm speaking with business owners about the cyber liability is, well, I have everything stored in the cloud. Well, that's great, but it's still not 100% safe because the cloud still has to be backed up by a server. Mm-hmm. And you're still liable, unfortunately. So the cyber liability is a huge thing. We have one of the best carriers out there right now that offering this, and they will do a complimentary vulnerability scan to see where your company is vulnerable, and then what measures can you take to protect yourself to make sure that there's enough coverage as well.
Sure. Okay. So this is something it sounds like every small business should know about.
Every single one.
Have you seen it where, let's take real estate, for example. There's a lot of these CRM companies that are out there, and these are big companies, Boomtown, Commissions Inc., Contactually. Do they have their own coverage, or is that on the users, or how does that typically work?
No, because they're specifically going after your...
So your login, your information is
exactly.
What I'm hearing.
So they're going after your specific client base.
Got it.
And they're holding that captive.
Wow. So if you're a small business, look up and Google cyber liability and figure out how you can get yourself covered, because the value with any small business is the database. It's the book of business. There's systems, and systems are valuable too, especially when you know how to go identify your target client, your avatar, whatever you want to call it. Most cases, any business the book of business is the value. It's who's going to return and repeat clients. So, wow. That's pretty shocking to me, and that's something we literally talked about during the show prep, and I was really surprised to hear about it, that it's this big of an issue. Yep. But then, not that TV's real, but you see a lot of times people they'll hack your computer and lock your computer down, and they do it remotely, and you got to go pay a ransom, and there's no guarantee you get. Even when you pay them. Yep. So how does it work? Let's say someone got your info. Then how does the insurance company go about protecting you? Will they pay the rent? Will they pay it?
So the insurance company they'll negotiate with whoever's holding the account's ransom. They will not pay the person holding everything ransom, because they're just not going to give a check to them. They just reimburse you for whatever the ransom is. But then they also help you with trademarking. They protect the trademarking of everything that you have. They'll reimburse you for any funds that you may have lost for your downtime while you didn't have everything. They just cover everything
wow.
that you could think of.
So, we've hit on some really important stuff. It's the cyber liability alone. I think any small business owner listening, that's something you should probably get on right away, whether you use Kevin or not. Just go get it and protect yourself. That's really the point here. You're involved locally and with your kids. Obviously, that's a really important thing. We talked about sinkholes. You've got a direct line on the real estate market, meaning when people will come to you when they buy a house because they need to get homeowners insurance to qualify for their loan. That's just how it works, right? So there's a lot of noise going on in the real estate market right now about what's happening. There's a recession pending. What does that all mean? So we've seen home buyer confidence drop a little bit. Specifically, there was a survey done, and in that survey, 56% of buyers, and this is from Realtor.com, 56% of buyers said that if a recession hits, they're not going to buy a home. And a lot of people are saying it might happen in 2020, might happen in 2021. So that's a big number. So what do you think about the housing market moving forward in terms of, obviously you have a kind of a lead indicator on homeowners insurance applications to determine what the buyer confidence looks like. So what do you think about all this? Because with the recession coming, this has been a big talking point, and I don't know that people are really totally informed about what that actually means for the housing market.
Right. Well, we've seen a slight decrease in applications and new home buyers. I would say around 30% from last year at this time. We normally see the drop off happen over the holidays from Thanksgiving to the end of the Super Bowl. But other than that, I really honestly haven't. I've heard of it from reading articles and things like
Sure.
that, but from the clients and the prospects that we've been speaking to, they don't seem too worried about it. I have seen most of them gravitate towards newer homes or turnkey style type homes, and I would actually say 70%, 75% of our client base has been millennials. Just starting out, getting married. So the older generation seem to be staying where they are.
Well, that's in line with what's been happening in the market, though. So, because, I mean, the average amount of time someone lived in a home jumped up from about 10 years ago, it was 7 years. Now it's 11 years.
Wow.
So people are staying longer. And then on top of that, you're talking about people that are, like, at need or motivated, and that's the ones pulling the trigger, where maybe they don't own a home yet, but they're getting married. They're forming families. And family formation also was started a lot later in the U.S., too. I mean, people are getting married and having kids in, like, their mid to late 30s now. It used to be, like, 28. Like, you were, I mean, it was a very different. So there's been a little bit of a shift there. So what? I mean, so it sounds like you're seeing maybe volume. Now you're talking about year over year. You feel like your volume's down 30% in terms of new applications, or is that just over the like? Give us some perspective on that stat there.
No, I'm just sort of looking at the end of the summer here with in the fall.
So like end of Q2, beginning of Q3.
Right.
Got it. Okay. And August historically is one of the slower months when it comes to real estate anyway. So not a total surprise there. So what's your outlook for next year? I mean, what do you feel like is going to be happening in your business in terms of new insurance applications coming in, kind of clients you're attracting? Give us some perspective on that.
Well, it honestly sounds like I'm probably going to have to do a little bit more networking to to review more policies rather than trying to find a home buyer because of where the market is and consumer confidence, because all over the news, like you've been saying, everybody's scared of the recession coming.
So there's some interesting stats about that, though, and what I wanted to share is that a lot of people don't. I mean, we think of the recession. I think of 2008, right? Like,
yes,
immediately
yeah.
When the market crashed. We were both working then. A little bit of a now, not everyone was. Not a lot of agents were even on our team, so they don't really know what that's like. But if you look at the past 5 recessions, and this comes from Keeping Current Matters, home prices went up in 3 out of the past 5. And if you take 2008 out of there, the biggest decline in home values was 1.9%.
Wow.
Out of the other 4 recessions that happened. So I don't know that the market's going to change in terms of appreciation, but to your point, there's less people moving. The number of sales are less, and I think that's a good indicator that you're seeing here. But the people that are buying, they sound like they're pretty confident.
Yes, yeah.
So there hasn't been maybe a hesitation there. It's more that people are staying put longer, and that's because moving's a pain in the butt. Yep. It's a hassle. I mean, people don't want to do it anymore, and the costs are really high. So it's all about, it sounds like the people that are buying are good with it. The people that are selling are making a move for the right reasons. Just there's less of that happening right now, and turnover's down. Mm-hmm. Is that fair?
100%.
Okay. So a little bit of our housing predictions there. What do you see happening, and any like unusual changes you see happening, or things that might like change the insurance industry over the next 24, 12 months? And any like kind of crazy stuff. You mentioned cyber liability. What other disruptors do you see in your industry moving forward?
Well, no one likes to hear this, but insurance rates have been increasing.
What's behind that?
Really, it's due to the severity of the storms we've been getting across the country. Unfortunately, the actuaries look at everything as a whole in the entire country, not just your specific area. So, with all the hurricanes and natural disasters we're getting with the fires in California and those types of things, they are increasing rates. And then also with Mr. Trump and his fight with China here, the tariffs actually do have an impact on the insurance rates because, especially with the auto insurance, because a lot of those materials to repair cars are coming from China. So they have a little bit extra of a tariff tax on top
Interesting.
of it.
So there are some political ramifications here. And we are not political people here. These are just facts of what's happening from the government in terms of how it affects consumers and people living in our area. So so rates might go up a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Unfortunately.
But I mean, rates always go. I mean, I think the costs always go up. Property taxes go up all the time too because it costs more to run schools. It costs more to run these local governments. So, I mean, what kind of jump in rates are you seeing? Is it double digits percentage wise? I mean, what's the norm?
Well, one of my carriers, who might not be a carrier for long, has been taking a 12% increase, which is
So that's pretty significant.
Very significant. And then we have other carriers that are only taking a 3%, which is typically the industry standard would be around the 3% area. But yeah, all types of. I would say the average has been around 7% though, with all of our carriers with the increase.
And that sounds like it's a little higher than the norm.
It is.
Okay, so enough that we're talking about it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's another great piece of information for anyone listening here. So we've hit on a lot of stuff here. I don't want to make this too much longer. Anything else you feel like people need to know about what's going on locally here? Anything that you're concerned about or you see for residents of like Chester, Delaware, Montgomery counties, Philly, Mainline, whatever? I mean, we've hit on a lot of stuff, especially a lot of stuff you're an expert in, which I appreciate. And there's things I've learned some stuff just from talking and having this little bit of a longer conversation than we normally do.
Well, I mean, because the insurance rates are increasing, I think my tagline with Alliance's insurance agency, as you know, is review before you renew. I think it's a great time to review your policy. I would love the opportunity to do so, but if I understand if you have a relationship, I still urge you to speak with your insurance agent to review your policy to make sure that you have the appropriate amount of insurance, and then obviously see if there's better rates that are out there, so you could save a little bit of money. Some people, I've been seeing some crazy premiums out there. I just saved somebody $2,000 a year off their insurance, and the guy had no idea.
That's
that
significant.
He was overpaying. Yeah, it was crazy.
It's like a vacation.
That's actually what I said to him. And another thing with the industry has been adding something called service line coverage, which has been huge in our area, especially with the older homes, because they would have, when the home was built back in the mid 1900s, say, you had that the clean out from the pipes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's ugly, right?
I've got one of these. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So everyone says, "Oh man, that's so ugly. Let's put a tree in front of it to hide it from everyone looking at it." Great, looks great. But now the new homeowners are experiencing the tree growing roots and the roots going into the service lines and creating puddles of poop.
That's what goes in the sewer line, waste, whatever you want to call it.
And it's been a huge expense. If you do not have service line coverage on your policy, there is no coverage for it. And it could be about $10,000 out of your pocket. It's definitely something that's newer to the industry that should be added to all homeowners policies.
You said it all. We covered a ton of work here, a ton of stuff here, not work. So if you want to get in touch with Kevin, we'll have his information easily available. It's Kevin Hamill with Alliance's Insurance. This is our first episode of our new podcast interview format, so thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me, Tom.
We're looking forward to keeping you guys informed about what's going on locally here. Watch out for the sinkholes. Take care.
Take care.